Hey, just a small update on where I'm sitting with everything. So far, the room's coming along. It's been a lot of work. I got rid of the dresser, the fish tank's moved over here. I'm going to have to clean it up. I plan to eventually have the fish tank over there. And look at this. I have slowly been working. I've got my Citadel, my crafts, my speed, my kitties, my light, and hopefully this feels more productive of an area. Anyhow, that's my current update. We'll put out another update once I get this set up, and I'll put all these three together as a montage or together thing or whatever. Oh, well, had to start over. Apparently the lighting was bad, so I'm gonna have to figure that one out. Wanted to take you down a quick lane of where I began and where I am and pressing forward. So again, pretty much this is where I'm sitting at. My old desk and my old setup. I've now got plenty of I got my speed paints in. These are all my different craft paints, and like I said, I keep them face down. And all my Citadel paints, my brushes, my little kitties, and my memory stuff, and yes. And with this table here is I can take it down, bring it back up for whenever my friends come over. I just did a painting lesson, and shows you how quick, if you put enough effort into something, and I'll show you what I mean by that, that you can become experienced as long as you methodically go through your ailments. Sure, we'll go with that. All right, so what do we got here? This is just plastic table. I was going to build a table. Started to become just as expensive as if I wanted to buy one. So it's a plastic table, 8-foot length, which divides these are my pre-done boards, where 2 inches from the outside, everything inside this is 30 by 44, and that one and this one all together give me, they're different colored on the other side. This is black. Gives me my 1K, 2K, 3K fights or battles. So I also do D&D, and I plan to put a fish tank. So this is everything I've ever painted, and I'm going to go over it. And this is pales in comparison to what I will show you in a second. This is just a preview of everything I've painted and everything I've just primed and all the mistakes that I've made. And I need to bring this over there to show you what I want to talk about with that. And my fish tank's going to go here. I do D&D. I think it'd be great as a DM to have that behind me. And this used to be my master bedroom. I was trouble sleeping down here and moved upstairs, and I'm turning my my bathroom into, I moved all my I have a lot of board games. This is only I think half of them, and I started working on my bathroom and putting like memorabilia. A friend gave me that for my birthday. By the way, today is my birthday. Yay! I'm trying to get this video out. I've been struggling with trying to get this room accomplished so that I can power forward. I'm losing my camera etiquette. And yeah. So hopefully I am now at a spot where I can go forward. I plan to keep doing hobby videos and press out from there. Let me grab a chair. Ooh, I can grab my new chair. Yes, it's purple. I wonder what it. Let me make sure the camera looks good. What does the lighting look like? That is so much better than what I had earlier. Earlier, it looked like there was nothing but a shadow on me. And anyways, this purple-looking chair. See if I can. There we go. Let's make sure. The reason why I am doing this on screen as opposed to off screen is because sometimes people fail to think about how much effort goes into putting out actual content that's worth its weight. There's a lot of juggling, there's a lot of moving, there's a lot of, is this correct, is this not? Okay, I think I need you. Let's see. There we go. That works. Let's do that. Now. Hello, I'm Coffee Nuts, and let's do a hobby. Where were we? July's when I started of 23. 10th edition's all I know. And I plan to do other hobbies down this road because there's so much out there to do. Aquarium is another hobby with fresh fish tanks and all that stuff. And that's going to be my next thing. I am working with the local pet shop, and I will get there. As you can see, my aquarium in here is currently empty. It moved to a bigger tank in the other room with better flow, and we'll leave it at that. So, my painting history. Prior to July, again, to reinstate, with zilch, really. I may have done some scribbling, some stick figures. The fact of the matter is, I had no clue what I was doing. And most of my miniatures looked gray, and I never thought about it ever much. So, pressing forward. How can I give painting advice with such limited? Well, first things first is you need knowledge and you need experience. And believe it or not, Loki, stop that. Leave the chair. Oh, now he runs underneath there, of course. Anyway, you need knowledge and experience. Fortunately, teaching provides both of those because you have to do research and you have to be willing to accept that the product will change and avoid having a regimented way of thinking, or else you will be blinded by truths and all sorts of things. So, bubbly, I love it. Where was this kitchen? So, in the first stage during July, when I began this hobby, and that's July, August, September. By the way, it's my birthday. I have done about 30, 60, 75 days, roughly, I want to say. So 75. This is how fast I became good at painting when I did the research and did the experiencing of what people were saying. Things that people would say: use a larger brush. Things that they would also say is paint and just paint and just paint and pick your favorite models to butcher first. I did that too. And they discuss priming and picking a method, which I did that too. And I have to say that it has been wonderful to do those field testing. Use a larger, cheaper brush in the beginning? Yes. Paint your favorite ones? Yes. Avoid the stigmata of saving your favorites for last, because it'll turn into a situation where you never paint it. Loki, you are being obnoxious right now. In the worst possible locations. I am would you please? Off. So play with it. Now he's interested in it. It's probably because I'm talking to a wall and he's like, well, maybe I should be behind him. You will, by the way, I am medically licensed by the state of Florida to partake in marijuana for my issues. So if you do see any paraphernalia around, do know that I am licensed to utilize it. Trying to cut out the word not from any diet. And here's something I would like to tell everybody out there. There is 2 words you need to remove from your diet unless you are trying to manipulate people. But and not. All knots will do is entangle you. I should write a whole book and I could explain how every single contraction makes you entangled and disabled from being humble or any. So if I backpedal on a sentence, it's because I'm doing my best in order to avoid saying certain things. Now, gotcha. Larger. And maybe I'll do an episode specifically on that, those statements. So, larger brushes, check, did that. Craft brushes, check, did that. Those, and I used it for a majority of all of these. Now, let's get into the first thing I was told to do. Paint it on a sprue. I had a friend who, he still does, and he paints all of his models on a sprue. As you can see, the nice thing that it is about painting on a sprue is you could get into this is the first thing I painted, by the way. The first thing. It only looks this good because I kept on painting it. This guy, I painted on the sprue. I had a lot of extra pieces that I painted. Yes, it got all of the nooks and the crannies, which was his detailed eye issue. He looks at his models and he gets up right here and he's looking at it all. I feel his pain. I too have that issue because it's a military detailed eye issue. I'm like, everything's got to get... So squelching that urge inside is difficult at times at best. This is primarily zenithal, I want to say is what it's called, where you layer base and highlight and build up. And so that gets me into my first bit of journey. And I painted this little guy, as you can see. And you can see This is the second guy I ever painted. And you can see where on his hands and stuff, I hope. Might take a picture later on and put it next to it. On my Patreon, there is all these pictures of all of this stuff because I was taking pictures, thankfully, to prove when I started and all that stuff by happenstance. And so, incidentally, I have proof. And then I was like, my daughter wanted to play Tyranids because I got the Leviathan box, and this is nothing but spray paint. It's Army Alien Purple with Field Fluorescent and Field Fluorescent. And it's got a nice little drizzle effect and overglossing because I sprayed extra spray paint just so it looked like it was just, I wanted it to look like a girl power toy. And she loves it. I have a bunch of other Tyranids. And I did one of my Orky boys back in the time, little squig. And then I put some layers on top of it to get it going. And he has sat there with that forever. So then I stepped into Slop Chop Land. Heard about it. They said contrast paints, just let it hide in its recesses. Cool. So I started doing that. Started working with contrast paints. Failed to understand the slop chop method. We'll get into that. And as you can see with this guy, it's got a lot more cleaner look comparative to this. I'm hoping that you are seeing the difference. Now, on this guy specifically, his skin is done with Citadel's orc flesh contrast, and the belt is done by Army Speed Painter 2 hard leather. And you can see that nice sheen, and I got a little bit of drizzle in his eye and made it look like a bloodshot and cool. I thought I was doing great, you know. Mind you, I had this guy I had done layered painting. I've got this guy. I got a host of other boys over there because I did the combat patrol. Aww. And then this guy, which I put the little goth rocker up there, and they're just cruising along. And you know, it was always my interpretation. He's got a purple speaker, and that it's kind of, since the sound is camouflaged, only the orcs hear the music as they're rushing into battle. All right, now, so it looked like I had stepped up my game, right? And here's another one that I did, a little bit of a more contrast and stuff. And then I produced this, and it made me worry. More light. Let me see how that looks on the camera, because I want to make sure that it's... This is frustrating. I thought I knew what I was doing, and this is where I'm going to get back into a fourth lesson and a second lesson. Keep painting, and know that you'll make mistakes would be fourth one. Either way, you got to keep going, because you're going to have a stain. Shortly after that I painted this one, I painted this guy. And I was back in my brain like, okay, maybe I just messed up on that one. Sure enough, shortly after it, I painted this POS. And right back into the dump. I was like, why am I just this? So we get into where I sit and where I was getting frustrated. And so I stopped and I started from the ground up, watched a few more videos and said, if my foundation is shit, redo the basics. The biggest thing I can tell you is, in the military we have this term called KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. Why? If you keep complexing things without a solid foundation, you'll just make it outlandishly. It basically, it's an unknot. And if you know anything about knots, they have to have a specific mathematical sequence in order to be classified as a knot, and instead of a fake knot. And pretty much too much complexity just makes it look like a knot, and it's all fake. There's no substance, there's nothing to untangle. Because if it was a real knot, then you'd be able to pull on something and realize where the problem is real quickly and where it's bunching up, and you get the point. Sometimes going back and looking at your foundation will help you. And through my 75 days, I kept on doing that. I would produce, because there was no immediate sequence to those. It was, I did this, came back and did this, and I was doing good, and then I fell, and then I would rise, and over days. So where do I sit now? The last bits that I'm going to show you would have been the stuff I produced in the last 2 weeks. 2 weeks? Yeah. No. Yeah, 2 weeks. The last 2 weeks would have been what I produced recently when I went back for the third time to double check things. And to give you an example of how they all turned out, is what I painted most recently. And to show that it was no fluke, I did it again. And my favorite one, again. Then I sat down and taught a few people, and through my methods, I realized the culmination of everything. So what is going on? Why the sudden things? I had understood layer painting, building up layers, and it's difficult without understanding, or it can be difficult at times to understand layering, even though it is a very basic method. And you can see how layering would work from a beginner's perspective of layering. I am no expert. And you can see how contrasts, this is my first actual attempt into contrast paints, believe it or not, are, because I had done this guy in layering, and then I did this guy in Citadel contrasts and shades. Well, aside from obviously some of the outlandish things. And I was mixing them all together, just trying to paint things, and I was just getting things more complex than anything. So the first part of my journey, metallics. They tend to be problematic. This is in no way finished, because I want to put more metals next to each other just to see what they look like and then blend them. I took this little oil thing, I painted it the color that I use for most metals, which is brown, because I like how brown with the highlights and everything gives a nice rusted look, and I'll show you that on my dry brushing things. I've got all of my metals on here, and to get to a point of you will find a color you will like throughout your journey and just write it down when you like it. This right here are different yellows that I wanted to find out would work, because orcs, yellow, and none of them were producing that nice dark yellow that was vibrant, that really just screams from the sun. You can see there's a mustard, there's a orange tint and a pastelish tint. So make yourself models. And what I was in the middle of going to do next, before I realized all of my problems, some things that I was doing was I was trying to figure out, maybe it's the paint I'm using. And then I started doing different paint layering. So I started off with one shade and one shade, and I painted these all teal, and then I painted one teal plus green, and then teal plus green plus red. No, sorry, it's this guy. Another green, to try to figure out what I was doing wrong. And this is wonderful to do too, for a whole different reason, because it gave me ideas that if I have a bunch of little Gretchen, let's say, because I'm an orc player, I can paint all of them different shades of green that I have and use them to reference and build a reference for things I like. And underneath it, I could just put little tags like 1, or I could say A1, and that way I could put in the bottom of my bottle A1, or label somewhere going Army Painter 1, Army Painter 2. You could make your own reference chart for you, because again, there is no one fix-all to a lot of this stuff. Alright, cool. Alright, so where was I sitting? I started over. I made my little metallic outline. I had started playing with things, and I went back and restarted. And I learned about zenithal highlighting more. Then I learned about slop chopping that things, and then I learned about the dry brushings and everything that you can do and don't, or do and avoid. By the way, these little wooden frames, shout out to Dollar General, and I will talk about that real quick. Something that I noticed is step 1 should be priming. Prime one of your 5 ideas. Gray is great. It is versatile and going either direction. White, it's a blank canvas. You get sharp colors. It's hard to go brighter at times, and you could work down instead. And then reverse, use black, and you could build up. These guys were all started with a black prime, and then the next step was dry brushing. There was a technique that someone had showed me in order to do spray paint black, and then gray, and then white. Cool, just like the paint on sprue. That may work for them. I find that peeling it back and just grab cheap craft paints, gray and white and black, depending on what direction you're going, and use cheap craft paints. The primer needs to do one job: be its color and allow paint to stick to it. So grabbing expensive primers can be pointless at times. The caveat to that is if you're trying to do same color from, let's say, Army Painter, and you want to bring through the same color, cool, then start with their version of it. Most of that is unnecessary. Just go get yourself some Rust-Oleum and get primer on there. You're almost an idiot for not priming. Next, you need to understand the dynamics of water. If you use paper towels, you will soak the water out, leaving the pigment. I've heard from many of my fellow painters out there to be wary of this, instead of thinking about the fact of what paper towels actually provide as a benefit. So, I'm going to take your thing, and yes, you're absolutely correct in the fact that it dehydrates the paint. So what does that in turn do? If it dehydrates the paint, it means there's more pigments, which in the other direction, you could either spend all day or you could dry out the thing and it will be a lot more chalkier, and you can do it that way. Do note the benefits of either of them. So there is a benefit. And the reason why I figured out that there was a benefit to using paper towels and drying and using the pigments and stuff had to do with one of the original slop chop videos where the guy was teaching slop chop. And he uses a paper towel, and I watched what he was doing, whereas the current new ones, people are like, use water with the dry brushing, and they're brushing it down and getting rid of almost all the paint so that there's just very little paint in there. And both methods are great. Do know the benefits of both. Start looking bigger picture is what I need everyone to do. I have found time and time again a lot of people who use cherry-picked data, negative bias, in order to furnace a method which does work with very little regard to why the other method could be perfected as well. And my next video, which I will be talking about GWS's Game Workshop's financial blah 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 that everybody's just like points per value. Oh, I'm going to destroy everybody who says points per value and real quickly in proof that that is just a shit show of wrong ass thinking. Now, because there's a lot more to it. When we get into this, I took and watched a lot, and I started with a lot of the different methods, and this is my dry brushing, as you can see, and the brown behind it, which I love, makes it so that where people are walking and using a lot of, it's rubbed clean because natural oils, cool, great. Whereas the places where people are less traveled, that's the nice thing about the brown or the deep red, is you can get away with having more rust all over it. And this is why I thoroughly state that you either do black, gray, white, a deep brownish, or other for color, because obviously other for color would you could put blue and help you expedite a lot of like the towel would be a good example of why you would use well, Space Marines would be a good reason why you would just paint blue on there first, or blue gloss, and then just go different, I should say. So I relearned how to I learned how to do dry brushing, and I took it to the next step forward and identified what was a zenith, the layer highlighting and slop chopping. And when we get into this guy, I used the dry brushing. I did primer in black, then I did dry brushing all over him, and then I came back and I used Army Speed paint for his leather that you see of the straps. It's hard leather, and I used I used Army Speed paint on all of this except for this tip. And for the green, for the red, and then for the very tip, I'm pretty sure that is Citadel Lead Belcher. So yes. And again, here was the guy I painted this is the third one I painted. I love the teal, the lavender shirt he's got. It's epic to me. This is the second one I painted. And you can see the nice little red that I have on there. And how simple this is for design. Going from a primer, then using cheap paint to just dry brush the highlights, a nice gray and then a white. And I will do an actual video. I just wanted to give people a talk about painting and some validity on where I sit now and where I sat then, to show my journey, and that you too could, because I've painted maybe less than 60 things. Like I said, these things I've painted. This is my current, and again, we have very limited that I have painted still. This is another guy I was testing out contrast. I hope you could see the shine on him. And this right here was my first. Okay, so let me bring it back to light. This guy right here was a fun journey as well. So this was my first airbrush, and my only airbrush so far. I airbrushed them all yellow, and then I took the pink airbrush stuff and I just all over it and let it drizzle out of the thing, and that's how I got his markings. And then I just did some tips, and I kind of left him looking like a junkyard. I like him. I gotta get rid of my ums. And I think I already talked about this. So, yeah, my frustration eventually grew, and I think I've painted, there's 40 different little figurines so far. 40, yeah. And now I'm finally getting into my groove. You guys need to get there too. It's very simple. Stop, think about your methods, work on your foundation. If you start making mistakes, it's okay, you field tested it. Good, great. Back up, regroup, and go on to your next minion and paint them. And just, you're going to make mistakes. It's how you view it as a learning instrument instead of the end of the world on whether or not you will get any substance from that. Because even shit is used to farm fields and grow crops. So with that, it's my birthday. I'm gonna go have a drink. Coffee Nuts out.